Hi, I did a video. There was no sound. I had pressed the wrong button. This is the redo of my video on Stephen Dale's pie plate build, which is a highly unusual build, but I'm seeing it pop up sometimes now. It's not even in my army build list. Go and watch that video if you want to. Um, so it's a build that's basically centers around as many HE shots as possible in the correct order. Um, and Stephen has a nice little trick for that, and I will show you what he's doing. Here we go. So he's going to a tournament in Scotland this weekend. It's a local tournament, 16 organized cap, 1,000 points, and he's bringing his Belgian reinforced platoon. Now, Belgians are a really interesting little choice because they're a little more limited than a little more limited than the French, but they still have some other French nifty tricks that you can do. So I think they're basically worth looking at. And at 15 order dice, he's pretty close to the mark. Um, what I would want, Steve, is for you to spend the last few points, right? You have 5 points left over here. So you might be able to scrounge a few points for a further unit somewhere down the line. And we'll maybe get back to what that could be. Right. So the first thing that we notice is that Stephen is bringing a regular first lieutenant. That's very expensive, 85 points, and he brings an extra infantryman for that lieutenant to make him a little bit more survivable. You could even bring double infantryman for him to make him useful later in the game. But and this is the first place I already know what Stephen's trick is, right? Um, Stephen, you might want to consider cutting out that extra infantryman. It's 10 points for what you're going to use your lieutenant. I don't think you actually need him. Um, so that's 10 extra points. So that means you have 15 points right now. Then he brings the Grenadiers. The Grenadiers are a really interesting unit. You can bring them basically for the Belgians. I think the French can do something similar, and then you can do that for the Japanese as well. So regular Grenadiers, 7 men, they are very, very, very expensive, but that is because they have 3 light mortars. Now, those 3 light mortars, there are 2 ways in which you can use them, and both of them are really beneficial. One of them is that you can shoot them at different targets, so you can split fire. And that means that with this one unit, you can shoot at 4 different targets, potentially delivering pins to all of those 4 targets, which is insane. Should you do that? Maybe not, but you can. Um, the other way you can do it is you can focus fire. So you can shoot all your mortars at the same target. Now that target, one, it's going to be very, very likely that you hit that target because 3 mortars, well, you're basically at around 50% to roll that 1/6. Um, that's really beneficial. So you're pretty likely to hit that target. 2, if you hit that target is now in deep, deep trouble because it's hit by a mortar, it gets pinned, but at the same time, 2 more mortars are zeroing in. That unit is in serious, serious trouble um, because it can't move away, it goes down, it gets shot by more mortars. Damn, that is rough. So for me, I think and there was a viewer of my channel who asked me about this. Why would you shoot at the same target? That is why I would do it, especially at very dangerous targets, because you can be pretty likely at one point you're going to hit, and once you hit, that ball start rolling, and you hit with more mortars, and it the unit is just locked down. It can't get away. It dies. So that is the reason why you bring grenadiers. That was something my teammate Mark told me and taught me using his Japanese. Now, Stephen also brings a cavalry troop. Cavalry is really useful, and I think, Stephen, if you can scrounge enough points to buy a second cavalry unit, that would be beneficial. What you could also do is you could split your grenadiers into 2 units. So you have 2 units of maybe 5 or 6 and 2 mortars in each, if you have the points for that. Because Stephen brings 3 units of inexperienced and the free unit as well, so 4 unit of inexperienced 10-man units. So that's basically into horde territory. There's a lot of bodies. That's 40 inexperienced bodies on the field. But Stephen, you're buying submachine guns and BARs for them, and for me that is not worth it because you're shooting with that -1. I don't think you're going to be adding that much extra firepower, and where the real power of these inexperienced units are is in the threat of an assault. Their rifles are mainly there to just skirmish a bit. So I think I would cut out those points, for me at least. I don't think I would use that. Of course, with the free infantry section that you get, yeah, take him, of course. But for the rest, nah, I don't think I would. I would save those points, spend them on an extra order dice, so you reach the 16 order dice and you spend all your points. Then there's a mortar team, a sniper team, and a boys anti-tank rifle team. Now, I can't remember actually if the Belgians can do this, but if you could, I think you should get yourself a flamethrower. It's just a very, very useful tool, and you do have saving up all of those points that we've been talking about. Yeah, I think you're sort of getting closer to it. So for me, that might be an interesting thing to do. Dave is bringing an inexperienced medium mortar that works really well, and especially in conjunction with what he's planning to do. And I'm going to give you a tip for that as well in a minute. A sniper team, the anti-tank rifle team. The anti-tank rifle is just there because you need it. You definitely need it. This list has very little anti-tank capability. So against the list, maybe a British list bringing an AEC and another tank, um, that's going to be rough. You're not going to have that much to that you can actually work against it. And there comes the prize of the list, double medium howitzers, regulars. Now, the plan here for Stephen is to have his howitzers sit close together with the lieutenant in between, so that he can, if he gets the first order dice, he can double snap to, snapping both of the artillery pieces. Now, I would add one thing, Stephen. I would add the medium mortar to that mix as well, because most of the time I don't think you're going to need to have both of your artillery pieces shooting indirectly or zeroing into something. It might be just as beneficial to have one of them on ambush, and I'm going to teach you a trick as well for that in a minute. So you could snap to, you could like leave one of the howitzers on ambush between turns, and then snap to the other two. So the medium mortar and the other howitzer that's not on ambush. That will still mean you get double zeroing in the first order dice. Sometimes that is really beneficial, right? If you want to have that 5 and you've just shot as the last turn in the as the last order dice last turn. So that double tab is really good. Is it worth the 85 points you're paying for the regular lieutenant? Maybe not, but it's a neat trick, and if it does work, it's really cool. So I would add the medium mortar somewhere to that mix. The main focus here will be to see if you can find somewhere where you can place this artillery nest where it can actually see stuff, and that is going to be difficult, but you might be able to do it. Right, so that is really cool. The final bits are some vehicles. We have the HEG-1, which is very expensive, but way more useful than the FT-17. The FT-17 is basically a single machine gun, and as such is very, very cheap. But the ACG is actually a tank. It's an 8+ tank. It has recce. It's close-topped. It can tank assault. Remember that always. But it's way too expensive for what it actually brings in the weapons department. And then a single truck. Don't know why you need the truck, especially don't know why you need it regular. You're not going to outflank with this list. If you had a flamer somewhere or an engineer unit, that might be it. That might be beneficial, but as it is, not so much. Um, you could even cut out the FT-17. I don't think you really need it. But right. So the final trick that I wanted to teach you is when you have double howitzers like this and you have a lieutenant that can double snap too, what you can do is if an enemy moves up against you with his recce steward, for instance, trying to kill you, what you can do is you put one of them on ambush and the other, so you snap two, right? The first one you put on ambush. The second, you do give a fire order. Now, that steward, that recce steward, what's it going to do? If it recce's, then your ambush can shoot it. If it doesn't recce, it gets shot, and then at the end of the turn, it possibly gets ambushed as well. Um, so it's in real trouble. It's a really good trick that you can do, especially with Snap 2, if you have two weapon systems against recce vehicles. So go do that tomorrow, Stephen, and let me know how it went, the trick. Did you use it? Did it work? I'm very interested in hearing that. Cheers.